There is some sustainability work that is now starting to be announced, which is looking for the sustainability sweep of all policy to make sure all policy can be ready for the future in a sustainable way. Likewise, we now have Australia's first soil ambassador in former Governor-General Michael Jeffries. Now, I know soil is the hardest topic to talk about, but it is the heart of the story. The great challenge, in fact, the greatest challenge of this century globally, we've spent years talking about climate change. For me, the greatest challenge is the unanswered equation that food and fibre production around the world has to go up 70% by 2050. It has to be done twice as efficiently due to loss of topsoils at a rapid rate and arable lands, and it has to be done with half the environmental damage due to impacts on natural resources, soil and water. That is one hell of a challenge for all of us, and the only way through is going to be a much bigger lift of attention within policymakers, like the appointment of Michael Jeffrey this week as the start of the journey, but also a lot of research and a lot of innovation in the space to make it happen. It is a huge opportunity for Australia, as it is a threat for the world, and it is a huge opportunity for our region. You can throw in emerging middle classes in China and India, and in that challenge, for a place that's got a lot of land and a lot of potentially arable land, and if we're smart about lifting the health of our soils and the way we use our water, we are well positioned for a sustainable boom industry of the future in food and fibre production, as well as the one that's quite often not talked about, natural resource management and ecosystem services. In the late 1990s, it was a multi-trillion-dollar service globally in this thing called ecosystem services. It's not talked about in such a way in Australian policy. We talk about agriculture or we talk about the environment. This is the bit in between, and I think we need to place much greater emphasis on that, get much greater coordination of it, and it is the regional communities that will deliver it and will gain the most benefit from it. So that was a good appointment this week. Some may have watched the news last night and seen a piggery that's now starting to produce electricity and knock its bills off and capture its methane. That's the start of the journey on the whole point of putting in an emissions trading scheme. That is an example that Port Macquarie Hastings Council is looking at with the landfill, and I know there are councillors in the room. It's where abattoirs like in Wingham are starting to have a look. But what you saw on the news last night is the start of that journey where innovation is the point of the exercise rather than trying to blow out electricity prices, as some politicians were trying to describe it as the point of the exercise yesterday. So I hope that has got you salivating and got you thinking about opportunities in your communities as to where innovation can make, not salivating about the bacon, but got you thinking about the opportunities in a market-based response to climate change and using it as an instrument to generate investment and innovation in community. On that same page, yesterday it was finally confirmed, it was starting to enter mythology that there was $1.7 billion in this land sector package that was negotiated through the Clean Energy Package. It was finally confirmed in writing yesterday that is only for the first 6 years, but it is very much guaranteed now in writing, in Hansard, that is a set of programs that are there forever. So that is the first $1.7 billion over the first 6 years, and it will grow over time as the emissions-intensive trade-exposed money comes off. We will start to see more money coming into that land sector again, something to have another look at for anyone interested in this area. But that was a nice letter to receive during the week. As well, I'd ask everyone to start thinking about the concept of biobanking. We've heard a lot about the market of an emissions trading scheme, things like additionality in the landscape, We've heard a lot about some on-farm activities and pasture improvements, but I'd encourage people to now start to explore the idea of biobanking. It is one that I'm certainly trying to encourage to try and get greater private investment in environmental services. And if anyone wants the best opinion on it, he's local, and I don't know whether, I'm looking around, I don't know whether he's in the room. Daniel Williams from GHD, in my view, has the great handle on it from a New South Wales biobanking point of view. I know there are different state-based schemes. It is now time, I would hope, that we can start to think about whether we need to coordinate a national biobanking scheme in Australia. I don't have a clock, so Peter, I'm conscious of going to over 17 minutes. How much have I got? Keep whacking on? I've just got a couple more points that I wanted to make to hopefully get people thinking and engaged. As well, this week I met with the tax commissioner who was just telling me he was leaving the job and going on to the Foreign Investment Review Board. Again, an issue of landscape management for Australia, and the development of this registry this week, I think, is something that will help all of us make decisions about is there a problem, and B, then what to do about it. Everyone would have heard the wild extremes of how much foreign ownership of Australian land occurs in Australia today, everything from single-digit figures through to the high 70s. No one really knows. And so the development of this registry this week and the role that the Foreign Investment Review Board plays is an important one and valuable one, but there is an opportunity for anyone in the room to get involved in the development of that registry and the chase for facts and information. In the same conversation, we talked about tax reform, and we've seen it this week with the Business Tax Working Group not coming in with any substantial recommendations and some early report back on the mining tax. They're both fights that I'm in, and they're both fights that I feel like I'm failing. So anyone who wants to get into the dry fight about tax reform, please, you're welcome to get into this Barney with me. The time now in Australia is for comprehensive tax reform. Comprehensive tax reform has been seen as potentially damaging to the short-term economic interests of Australia and having questionable benefits to the future standard of living of Australians. I think we're beyond that point now. I think the future standard of living of Australians and the short-term economic impacts are damaged if we don't do comprehensive tax reform. And we are seeing it almost daily now where there is an issue that emerges because politicians haven't been brave, because they haven't talked to each other like adults across Commonwealth and state boundaries, that we are failing the tax base and therefore failing Australians and the future standard of living of all Australians. So I'm looking for help amongst parliamentary colleagues, and that'll come from people in the room getting mobilised and actually talking about another dry and uninteresting topic called tax. I'm pushing you to talk about soil, and I'm pushing you to talk about tax. Both of them actually matter for the future of Australia, in my view. So finally, two other points. One is health and hospital reform. That program is rolling out. We need to integrate the Medicare locals, and anyone in health services in this area, I hope, would concur with that. So there's capital infrastructure going into hospitals here, such as Port Macquarie and Kempsey. There's over 100 around Australia that are now getting more work done through the $1.8 billion that was negotiated for the Health and Hospital Fund. But now trying to integrate at a community level, the GP-based services through the Medicare locals with those hospital-based services, and also aged care services, and also the private sector. That is the next round of how we start to think through at a community level to get the best health outcomes possible. I just flag that as an issue that is certainly in my mind, and hopefully for reformists in the room is in your mind as well. One final fight that I'm losing, that I'm very sad about, and that our region, more than any other, should lead. Between Sydney and Rockhampton, 50% of the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander community lives. You wouldn't know it if you read a newspaper. Everyone's living in the Northern Territory, but it is our window on the East Coast where more than 50% of the population lives. We represent Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Australia. I am very sad that amongst parliamentary colleagues and even more broadly amongst the Australian community, there isn't the want and the desire for a bit of urgency about getting recognition of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders in the Australian Constitution. It looks like it's just going to bubble along behind the scenes as a secondary issue that'll get dealt with one day in the future, we all hope. There's a window, it's an ever-shrinking window to try and agitate to get major political parties to organise a question for an election sometime towards the end of next year. It's shrinking and it's shrinking fast, and I'm feeling like I'm failing. But if anyone wants to, if anyone gives a damn, please get mobile, get motivated, talk to family and friends. Thanks. And they are a sponsor, and that's not a sponsorship call. But the point to get mobile is down the bottom here, the UMe Unity website. They will direct you to the right path to send the emails, send the letters, make the phone calls, get in people's faces. But now's the moment if we want it at all. So my basic message is: Norm Morgan, Teddy Roosevelt, be a lifter, have a go, don't be afraid of critics, and that is the regional leadership way. I want to thank all of the people in the room I know, because I know I'm preaching to the converted when I see your faces in this room. For those that I don't, from the communities you represent, I hope you're the same. You probably wouldn't be here otherwise, but so thank you for what you do, and I hope through days like today, through moments like this moment in Parliament where regional Australia does have a voice, and through just the general culture of Australia where regional Australia is still loved in the hearts of most, that this is our time to shine, and that this is our time where we really can be the engine room for the economy and the communities of Australia. Good luck in all that you do. Thanks.